Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show where tonight we celebrate Kelvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars. What a freaking performance last night. One of the great performances in March Madness history. One of the great comebacks in college basketball history. And a night that makes us all remember why exactly it is that we love sports. I mean, it's great when you can get a result like that, a comeback like that of epic proportions with everything on the line, with all the stars playing in the game, and remember why it is that we all love these silly sports so damn much. And especially in a tournament where we just have not had the typical madness, the typical craziness that comes along with an NCAA tournament. I feel like it really, really needed what Kelvin Sampson and Houston provided to everybody yesterday. Not only that, but it came at the expense of the good old Duke Blue Devils. That doesn't hurt when it comes to making everybody happy. So I've got a lot to talk about as far as that is concerned. What it means for the Big 12, which obviously it is a massive win for the Big 12. There's a lot of history and a lot of context to put Houston's win in when it comes to the big picture for the conference. But I do want to spend some time and just make sure that the game in and of itself and Houston's story does get plenty of love as well. If we are going to talk about the stakes coming up on Monday, though, one, really tough turnaround, okay? Really difficult turnaround for Houston to have to put that one behind them and forget about it. And then two, the narrative on this entire college basketball season can really swing based on the result of this game. Maybe some of you get a little annoyed at how often I talk about like narratives here, but what people will be talking about at the end of the college basketball season can vary drastically based on whether or not Houston or Florida win the national championship game. The only time I will talk a little bit of football here, today Dennis Dodd wrote a story about private equity in football and how basically they all think that there are billions of dollars that are being left on the table every single year in college football. And so the idea is, hey, are these super leagues, Project Rudy, for instance, actually more viable? Because if you pooled everybody together, you could make more money. That's been their pitch. There's a little bit of extra info on there, nothing too terribly new, but there is one nugget about Patrick Mahomes in all this, just buried way deep. Excuse me. Ooh, getting too excited. Buried way deep in this story that is very long. One nugget about Patrick Mahomes that I think as it relates to college football in the Big 12, you'll find very, very interesting. So that's what I've got for you today. Appreciate everybody being here as you file in. Make sure and fill up the chat room as I see many of you are. Let us know how you're feeling about Houston after last night and how you're feeling about them taking down Florida and the odds of being able to put that behind them just 48 hours later. If you want to make sure your question or comment gets on tonight, you can click the $ below the chat box. In order to do that, creates a super chat that guarantees that it gets read on the air. Also a way to support the work that I'm doing here on this channel, which I immensely appreciate all of you who are able to do that. Even if you can't, if you just like the video and subscribe to the channel, that is more than fine with me. Like and subscribe helps out a bunch. And if you can subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, that is even better as well. It's ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com. You're going to have one hitting your inbox bright and early tomorrow morning. Those of you who are subscribed, the 3,500 that are subscribed, that get Big 12 news straight to their inbox twice a week for free. Appreciate all of you guys. If you like what I do, that is the best thing that you can do for me is subscribe to that Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. All right. Oh, John-Kurtz-4, one last housekeeping item. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you'd like to contribute that way, if you're not watching live, I will use your question or comment then at the top of the next show so you can still be a part of the conversation. Appreciate all you guys out there as well. So, man, I said it earlier. I'll say it again. Houston gave us all a gift, and I don't mean just us Big 12 fans. Houston gave the college basketball world and just casual sports fans a gift because everybody's watching the Final Four, right? College basketball does not rate very well during the regular season, but everybody's watching during the Final Four. Everybody should be thanking Houston, and I'm going to tell you why. But everybody should totally be thanking Houston, whether or not you're rooting for the Big 12. That was just the perfect spectacle, why we love sports. And it's because it had so many different things that make games like that, like unforgettable and the entire reason that we're all here. I know it may seem like we're all here to talk about conference realignment and all these stupid, intricate, like way inside baseball things that happen in the sport. We're here because we like the games. We're here because we like to watch. I mean, that is ultimately what draws you in, right? You like to watch exciting games like that. And that was a freaking thriller. First of all, there were stakes, right? Obviously, we're in the Final Four. Not only are there stakes, but that draws in a wider audience. Everybody loves the Final Four. Everybody loves the NCAA tournament. It makes a ton of money every single year. It's the biggest cash cow for the NCAA every single year because there's that much interest in it. Stakes, Final Four, winner plays for the national championship. Don't need to say any more about what the stakes were for that. And then you just had an amazing comeback. And this is where, it's so easy to gloss over Houston's toughness as a team and just be like, hey, I mean, they've been great this year. They can shoot it better. Between Sharp and Uzan, like they've got a little more punch offensively this year, but don't forget about their toughness, man. I said earlier this year, I think it was after they won at Texas Tech, that Houston could win a road game in hell because they are just that tough. And you look at the path through the tournament, man, they had to play a top 10 KenPom team in the round of 32. No problem. They had to play a road game against a 4 seed in the Sweet 16. No problem. Their toughness got that done too. Now here they sit having to play Big Bad Duke, second best team according to KenPom in the last 30 years. One of the best players in college basketball we've seen in recent memory in Cooper Flagg. And they're down by 14 with 8 minutes and 15 seconds left. It was a 14-point game with 8:15 left. Okay. It was a 9-point game with 2:15 left. 2 minutes and 15 seconds left. It is a 9-point game. With 1 minute and 15 seconds left, Duke was up by 7. And Houston won the game. That is insane. Houston went on an 11-1 run in the final 114 to close that out. And if you want to extrapolate that out over the final 8:15, when they were down by 14, it was a 25-8 run the rest of the way after that. Again, just insane to be able to lock down Duke and lock down a truly transcendent special player like Cooper Flagg. Just crazy. And if you want some good context to this, Houston goes on the 11-1 run with 114 left to close the game. So in a minute, 14 seconds, they scored 11 points with the game on the line, with their season on the line, with the national championship game on the line. At the beginning of the game, it took Houston 12 minutes and 30 seconds to score their first 11 points. 12 minutes and 30 seconds. And then they just whip out 11 points in a minute 14 when they absolutely had to have it against a transcendent player and everybody's favorite to win the tournament, Duke, who had been cruising the entire game. I mean, Duke completely controlled that game for 38 minutes and 45 seconds. Like, period, end of story. They were totally in control of that game, and Houston just stick around. And I like the way Kelvin Sampson said after the game, like, hey, we just wanted to put some game pressure on them and see what that would lead to. And especially when they're, the Duke team they're so young, right? They are young. And while they've been very talented, and I think if they just don't choke, like, they're going to win the national championship. But one thing you can get at them a little bit with is it's not like super old team in the portal necessarily. This is more your young, talented freshmen, kind of the old school way to do it for the top tier teams here. So if you can't, maybe you can get them to wilt a little bit, turn up the full court pressure. They did start to wilt a little bit. Cooper Flagg got his chance to have the one shining moment and hit the game winning shot. Didn't hit it. So they put some game pressure on him and good things happen, man. Crazy. Shout out to Houston for that. Duke had a 97% chance to win with 2.5 minutes left. A 97% chance to win with 2.5 minutes left per ESPN analytics. It got as high as 98% at one point in the game when it was a 14-point game. So, yeah, incredible comeback. We love that. We love an incredible comeback with stakes, and we love the memorable moments, like the moments that everybody is talking about. First of all, Emmanuel Sharp, the 3 that cut it to 3. That was really when you were like, okay, you start paying attention, like, all right. And I feel like Emmanuel Sharp has just been that dude all year. When Houston really needs a 3, he's the guy that's there to stick one for you. 41% 3-point shooter. He's been a tremendous addition to that team. You've got the stolen inbounds play. What is it with Houston and inbounds plays in this tournament? They're going to have a couple of them probably in one shining moment between that one and then the one that they had against Purdue with the little give and go. Excellent execution on that, and it turns into Joseph Tugler with the tip slam. Great moment there. And then, I mean, man, Juwan Roberts, it does not get more storybook than what happened with Juwan Roberts, who in this era of transfer portal and NIL and everybody complaining about it and hired guns and nobody with any loyalty, nobody wants to stay anywhere. In this era, here's Juwan Roberts, who's a fifth-year senior who started at Houston, averaging 1 point per game his freshman year, sticks it all the way out with Kelvin Sampson. Not an easy guy to play for, right? Like, that's a very tough, very demanding coach. He sticks it out all 5 years. And here at the end, he's not only become, a great player, one of the best players in the Big 12, but he has his March Madness moment. Guys hovering around 60% at the free throw line, gets a chance to go to the line for a 1-and-1, a 1-and-1 to take the lead and knocks them both down. That was a perfect moment. Perfect, made for March kind of moment for Juwan Roberts to do that. And then he's defending Cooper Flagg when Flagg is trying to hit the game-winning shot himself. And it leads to great post-game moment. If anybody has not seen, you should definitely go to Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at JL Kurtz and find it on my timeline. But the crowd shot of his mom coming running to him after the game as soon as it was over to embrace him, that was great. It was great stuff. Great stuff. And the last ingredient that we had that just like everybody wants in these moments to make them so great, of course, we had a little bit of controversy, had to have a little bit of controversy. Now, you may disagree with it being controversial, but the over the back call on Cooper Flagg trying to rebound the free throw, that's drawn plenty of flack. I can understand why. It's probably a little soft, yeah. But it put a 61% free throw shooter at the line for a 1-and-1. Like, that could have very easily been a good thing for Duke. And Houston they had the rebound, right? Like, Cryer, I think it was, came and got the ball. So what would you rather have if you're Houston at that point? Juwan Roberts, 61% at the line for a 1-and-1, or take your chances with offensive possession? Be really interesting to get like a true serum answer from Kelvin Sampson on that in that moment, what he would have taken. So I'm not here for a whole lot of conversation about that being the real difference in the game or anything like that. But anyway, with all of that, like, that's perfectly wrapped under the tree. That's the type of present you want. That's what you want to watch in the Final Four. And Houston did just enough throughout the first basically 39 minutes of that game to keep you interested, string you along, keep you from turning the TV off. Like, I'm not going to lie, myself as a Big 12 fan, somebody who was very interested, very invested in watching that game, there were a couple moments where I was like, I'm picking up my phone, like I'm scrolling, like the game's on. I mean, I'm going to keep it on, but I just had lost interest in following it really closely when it got out to 14, because I was kind of like, yeah. I mean, this really feels like it's pretty much over. So they did just enough to keep you from turning it off. The casuals, hopefully most of them stuck around. And it just redeemed the tournament. In so many ways, I feel like it really redeemed the tournament. We've got an all-time tournament moment to hang our hats on this year, in a year that was extremely chalky. We got 4 1 seeds all the way to the Final Four, which did work out the way that you would hope it would. We got 2 very good games. I mean, Florida-Auburn was also a really, really entertaining, high-level game. So you didn't get the upsets. You don't have St. Peter's. You don't have Dunk City. You don't have Florida Gulf Coast. But what you got was one of the best comebacks against one of the best players in college basketball history here in the Final Four, which is a tremendous moment. So you had to be patient, wait for it a couple of weeks. You didn't get it during the opening weekend in the first 2 rounds. But it was funny. I was talking to a friend as I was watching the game last night, and the friend said to me, like, hey, one shining moment, like, there's not even going to be any real buzzer beaters or like crazy moments there. It'll be like Maryland, Colorado State. And then I was like, yeah, you got the Purdue Houston inbounds, I guess, too. But there just was not a ton of that, not a bunch of upsets to show. Now you got some real good ammo to throw into one shining moment. I think you'll get some good stuff out of that game. So thank you, Houston, for the Big 12's sake, which I'm about to get into here in just a moment. For the Big 12's sake, absolutely thank you to the Cougars. Thank you to Kelvin Sampson and company. But the rest of America should be saying thank you to Houston as well for capping off the tournament with some incredible drama. And maybe there's a lot more to come with the Florida game tomorrow. We shall see. Appreciate all of you guys being here. If you could like the video, that would be amazing. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com in order to do that. If you want to be a part of the show tonight, make sure you click the $ below the chat box. You can submit a super chat that way. Appreciate all of you who can support that way. If you can't, no big deal. Like and subscribe. Still love you all the same. And you can contribute on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 as well. If you are so inclined, and if you're not watching the show live, it's a great way to keep up. I will read your question or comment to kick off the next show if you do that. Oh, Isaiah, I like this. Houston fan coming in here. Isaiah says, we're about to take over San Antonio. Home field advantage in a championship game, 16 million viewers. Watch the Big 12 grit and grind. Well, there you go. We got the TV number. I had not even seen the TV number yet. So thank you for that, Isaiah. I really appreciate it. First of all, congrats. Have a hell of a time if you are going to be there. I certainly hope all of you guys that are Houston fans within a drivable distance there are going to that, because first of all, once in a lifetime type. I don't know if you're Houston, I guess it's not. But for me, when my squad hasn't been there since the 60s, once in a lifetime type of moment. Plus San Antonio, all the reports on San Antonio are it's about as good a place to have the Final Four as any. So go check it out. Go get there. Go get in the building. Be there for it. All right. Definitely do it. And yeah, man. And just a lot of Big 12 camaraderie happening last night. Whether you like it or not, I was back and forth with a Texas fan the other day. I was like, I don't understand this, conference camaraderie stuff. I would never root for LSU or whatever. And I was like, well, pretty sure the SEC invented the conference camaraderie thing, but I digress. If you're a Texas fan, that's very on brand with not wanting to do that. Here in the Big 12, we've got reason to band together and pull for everybody. So definitely with you, Isaiah. Definitely with you. Appreciate you. Taylor, yes, I did see Jim Nantz crying. I did see Jim Nantz tearing up. He is a Houston grad. That was a cool moment. A lot of great celebration. Hakeem Olajuwon was there. I saw him go up to Elgin Baylor and those guys have an embrace. It was cool. Brett Yormark was running around there, looking dapper as always. And just good vibes. Good vibes all the way around, man. Good vibes all the way around. Speaking of, big part of the good vibes here is what Kelvin Sampson said when he got a microphone put in his face after the game, which shout out to my man for that. I did not expect. He was one of the last people I would expect to have a bleep the haters kind of moment at the end of the game, but he did, and he didn't do it really on behalf of Houston. It was more on behalf of the Big 12. So I'll get to that in just a moment. And I think his quote really perfectly encapsulated like what Yormark is going for with this conference, like what has changed with this conference since Brett Yormark took over. We were just talking about the celebration, right? In that aftermath, I guess maybe it shouldn't surprise me that a quote like this came out, that out of that wild celebration was birthed this. I saw some comments. I think it was Matt Norlander, who's one of the better national college basketball analysts, had said he hadn't really seen a scene like that after a non-championship game, that it like kind of resembled that, which you can understand. I mean, later on, I'm going to talk about that. And that's why it's so hard to turn around and then play a game on Monday, because that did in many ways feel like a championship game. You slayed Goliath. That was the Goliath of the tournament that nobody thought could be beaten. And you just did it in thrilling comeback fashion. So yeah, it's a wild celebration. The emotions are going to be flowing. That's when you'll get something like that into a microphone. But when you have the big guns out there, Jim Nantz is crying. Like, that's a guy, has to maintain his professionalism all the time with this. He broadcast Houston in a Final Four already, kept the emotions in check fine. But he's there in the stands losing it. I mentioned the emotional moment, Juwan Roberts and his mom who came running over to him. So there's just a lot going on there. But the best part of the night, undoubtedly, as much as I love that, as much as Nance crying is cool, as much as seeing the dream there, the best part is Kelvin Sampson, what he said to Tracy Wolfson, who was doing the interview after the game. So Tracy Wolfson doing like the sideline style interview, on-court interview after the game with everybody. I mean, look, Kelvin Sampson's he is not a guy for pleasantries. He's not a guy for fluff. He's going to pretty much just tell you what's on his mind, give it to you straight. And it's going to be pretty substantive and not a lot else going on there. He stepped up. And I thought just perfectly captured what the sentiment should be from somebody in his shoes after that game, both on behalf of his league and on behalf of his team. Now, whether or not that actually gets said usually is a different conversation. I think a lot of times a coach might just choke that back and not actually deliver it there, but Sampson did, and I really, really like that. Let's set the tone here by showing you some of what was being tweeted at one point in the game, right? So it gets to where it's a 14-point game, and the ESPN win probability says it's 98%. Okay, 98% chance that Duke is going to win the game. That's what's going on out there. All right. And then you get stuff like this. Brandon Marcello, right? Brandon Marcello. Florida, Duke, Walter Clayton Jr., Cooper Flagg. Going to be a good one. Already hyping up the star matchup with Cooper Flagg in the national championship game. Every team in the Final Four was championship worthy this year, which I know that's meant to be a compliment. But that was kind of the vibe with Houston, where everybody just going into the game, during the game, everybody was sort of like, man, Houston really is a great team. They're a worthy team. It's a, kind of like patting you on the head, like, oh, that's cute, guy. You are really good. That's great, but you're not Duke. That's how everybody was acting about it. That's how I was acting about it. So I can't sit here and do this a holier than thou thing with it. That's how I was acting about Houston's chances going into the game. So I've got no room to talk. Understand that. I'm not trying to hate too much. But you even have this. I mean, John Fanta. Oh, I messed up here, guys. Sorry. Share my screen here for John Fanta, one of the best college basketball analysts going out there right now. Duke has Cooper Flagg. Houston does not. We're just about done here. You can see that was tweeted at 10:01 Central Time last night. I guess in Fanta's defense, he did say we're just about done here. He didn't say we are done here, but he was close. So that's the type of thing that's being tweeted during the game. We had a lot of that going on heading into the game, and that's what Kelvin Sampson said that he heard. I would play this clip, guys, but I'm worried about getting flagged on YouTube for doing that. So I got to just read you the quote, but Sampson was not even asked directly about this. He was asked a question about, it was the second question from Tracy Wolfson, and it was about the seniors, the leadership and toughness of the guys that were around him because he had the whole team around him. That was basically the question. He spent about 5 seconds on that being kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, that's great. These guys are awesome. They work hard, and that's what that was. But I hear what people said. Now I'm quoting him. I hear what people say. Duke this, Duke that. Look, Duke's great. John Shire is awesome. But don't sleep on Houston. Don't sleep on Houston. We weren't 34-4 playing in the Toy Poodle League. Great line, by the way. That's a bar. That is a bar from Kelvin Sampson. We weren't 34-4 playing in the Toy Poodle League. We were 19-1 in the Big 12. Playing in the Big 12 helped us. Shout out to my Big 12 brethren. That is outstanding from Kelvin Sampson. And you can understand the frustration he's feeling as he hears the narrative about this game and in the tournament basically be about Duke. And then if it's not Duke, maybe Auburn or Florida. And they were definitely drawing all the headlines as the one seeds. And it was sort of like Houston was this. Everybody recognized that they were great. It wasn't total disrespect, but it was a little bit of I mentioned the pat you on the head, okay, guy, yeah, you're good. Great job. But you're not going to win the thing. And so, of course, you'd have a chip on your shoulder about that. And, of course, you'd have a chip on your shoulder about that when you're 19-1 in the Big 12 and you feel really strongly about your league. And you got to remember, too, I think some of this is baked into, especially the Toy Poodle League comment, has to be baked into the fact that Kelvin Sampson played a long time in the AAC, right? I mean, this is not his first rodeo. This is the 6th straight Sweet 16 that these guys have been to. And for a lot of this time, they're having to hear about how they play in the AAC, and that's a mark against them, and no one believes in them because of the conference that they play in. So they're taking a lot of crap for that over the years, and I'm sure that that's a part of what has laid the foundation for Sampson having a bit of a chip on his shoulder there. Man, you guys just don't learn, do you? No matter what, you're going to say stuff like this about us. So I really think that was pretty loaded and something that was a long time coming for him to deliver that. But why I think it's just really important is it goes along with what I always say about how Yormark has really changed the Big 12, where he's just set a more aggressive tone. Not going to be run over, not going to let people just walk over you. Stick up for yourself a little bit. Be proactive in trying to set the narrative or combat anti-Big 12 sort of narratives. And the league has really needed that. And I think this is like just a sign, like it's been cultivated, and it's really changed. It has really changed since Yormark showed up. So this is no longer, your Dan Beebe, just be very reactionary, bow down to whatever Texas says. It's not that anymore. Bob Bowlesby, I think, did some very good things, but was not always the most proactive guy in the world either. And I think this is Kelvin Sampson falling in line with Brett Yormark right off to the side, by the way, not very far away. With Brett Yormark right there, it's Kelvin Sampson embodying all of that. So I'm sure Brett Yormark was excited, happy to see that quote from Kelvin Sampson, and obviously happy to see the win for the Cougars. So tremendous stuff there. Appreciate Kelvin Sampson. I can only imagine. I hope he's got an encore left. If they beat Florida, I hope he's got an encore left when somebody puts a mic in front of his face, because that would be great. That would be great. Some of that too. I forget an angle that I miss on this. It's Kelvin Sampson hearing all year about the SEC, right? Like, hey, if we were 19-1 in the SEC, you guys would be talking about this much differently, but we were 19-1 in the Big 12. So we're not hearing about this. We hear about Duke, and then we hear about the SEC and Florida and Auburn and it's best league ever and all that. Nobody's talking about the Big 12 anymore. Watch us just go slay Goliath. Now I'm going to talk my you-know-what, because we just took out Goliath of the tournament, and we did it the way we do it, man, by just showing toughness and being gritty and finding a way. So, yeah, I think there was a lot that led up to that soundbite coming out from Sampson. All right, let's hop into some super chats. Appreciate you guys who are here. You can click the $ below the chat box in order to submit a super chat if you want to guarantee that you make it on the show tonight. Just like my guy James. Appreciate you, James. James says, the most amazing Houston basketball game I've ever seen, and one of the most improbable comebacks on a big stage I've ever seen. Wow, I'm so stoked for tomorrow. Go Cougs. Well, again, James, congratulations. Sincerely, enjoy this, man. I know you guys have been to a Final Four, and it's 6 straight Sweet 16s, but last year's a great example. I mean, you see how fleeting this can be. You're probably headed to the Final Four last year, and then, Jamal Shead gets the ankle injury, and that totally changes everything. So it can be very fleeting. You just never know. Soak it all in. Enjoy it. It's great for the league, but it's great for you. Enjoy this experience as a fan. And you're right. One of the most improbable comebacks on a big stage. When you combine the stage with the level of comeback that was, it really was historic. It is not an overreaction. It's not being hyperbolic to say that was a historic performance that we all witnessed last night from Houston and company. And I think, we'll see what Cooper Flagg goes on to do in the NBA. I'm certainly not enough of an NBA guy to have a great opinion on that. But, if he becomes a really big name, that will carry more weight too as the years go on. Man, they kept Cooper Flagg from doing it. Juwan Roberts hit the 2 free throws and then defended him, forced him into the tough fadeaway, and he did not knock down the shot. It was a solid look, though. I will admit, for Cooper Flagg, that's a solid look. I was a little surprised he didn't hit it, but he didn't. Congratulations, James. Hope you guys enjoy the hell out of tomorrow. Starter 179, Texas Tech fan in the house. What's up, Starter 179? Says, I don't think these other leagues understand what we mean by the toughness of the Big 12 until they have to go against it. 1 field goal in the last 10 minutes. Yeah, let that sink in. 1 field goal in the last 10 minutes for Duke. Crazy. But that's what Houston does. It was billed as the matchup between the number 1 offense, Duke, in the country, against the number 1 defense, Houston, in the country. And for a while, it really looked like the offense was going to win out. But Houston turned up the pressure and put the clamps down when they needed to. There is a definite level of toughness there, especially when you look at who had the best run in the tournament for the Big 12. The two that did, it's Texas Tech and it's Houston. And Texas Tech, if they don't have just a crazy collapse of their own, they're in the Final Four as well, alongside Houston. And those were 2 really tough teams, right? I mean, the whole mantra from Grant McCasland, toughest team wins, right? They built their entire program around that. They're obviously a very tough team. Same with Houston, and that worked out. And, the toughness for Texas Tech really showed up in that Arkansas game where crazy comeback at the end, right? Big 12 had a real knack for this. So again, tournament fans, you're welcome from the Big 12 for providing you some of the best games. I mean, some of the absolute best games of the tournament, and some crazy comebacks and crazy drama. Thank you, Starter 179. Great to hear from you. Cat fan in Huskerland, aka Daniel Osborne. Congrats to Houston. Go Cougs, beat Florida. Amen to that. Amen to that. On board with that. And well, that's really a perfect lead-in, Daniel, because hope you are well, by the way, my friend. But it's a perfect lead-in to what I'm talking about next, because there is a lot of significance here for the Big 12 in this game. I wanted to make sure Houston got their due. I think I've done a good job giving them their due. Now, broaden it out a little bit. The national championship game is Big 12 SEC. That is important. It's been a year of anointing the SEC the greatest college basketball conference ever. Most tournament selections ever. Most Sweet 16 teams ever. It's been a contentious topic. If anybody dares to try and go against that for the SEC, well, the Big 12 can dramatically flip the narrative here in the last game of the season by tacking on to that Houston-Duke result a Houston national championship. That could change what we're talking about when we start next season in college basketball, which seemed damn near impossible when the SEC has had such a level of dominance this year. And the SEC does have its first team in the national championship. I believe I saw this right. I did not double check this, but since 2014, I mean, they haven't won it since 2012 when Kentucky rather beat Kansas. So if you want to turn this around on the SEC here, you can. If Houston beats Florida, think about how different this becomes. Okay. Think about how different this becomes. The Big 12 will have 3 of the last 5 national championships. If we're talking about individual years, tournaments that have been played, 3 of the last 5 national championships. And we should always tack on, the COVID year right before that, Kansas was the number 1 overall seed going into the tournament. Certainly would have had a very good chance at a national title, but they didn't get it. You also, before that, if you want to extend it back, this is already 4 times in 6 years now that the Big 12 has had a participant in the national championship game. So, okay, we do a better job of separating this out. All right, here's what happens if you win. If the Big 12 wins, you got the national champion this year. You were painstakingly close to having 2 teams, half the Final Four. But still, to get a national championship out of it, get a second win over the SEC in the regional final round and beyond, beat them to pick up the national championship, that would carry a lot of weight this year up at the top with what you have in your league. It turns it into a somewhat disappointing tournament for the SEC. Had the SEC not won the title but lost to Duke, I don't think it would be all that disappointing, but anybody else, all of a sudden now you got to look at it like, man, you guys had more lottery tickets than anybody, more teams than anybody, supposedly great at the top, still couldn't win the national championship, even when the best team, most people would say the best team, got bounced, right? The excuse that you had got bounced there. And then you'd say, well, man, when the Big 12 has won 3 of the last 5 titles, UConn went on a hell of a run there with Dan Hurley. But if you take that out, the Big 12 is just winning all the national championships. It's the Big 12 and then Dan Hurley. You can start to play that card. 3 of 5 titles, 4 of 6 with somebody in the title game. It also turns into like a league of like, man, look how many different teams can win titles. Baylor, Kansas, Houston would have all won titles, 3 different teams. Texas Tech's the other team to have been there. That's 4 different programs. So this is a league. When you talk about the strength of the league, you've got 4 national championship caliber programs in this conference. That's pretty damn good. The pushback I got from SEC fans when I was criticizing their record in the first round and how they got 14 teams in was like, well, teams at the top did what they should, man. Look how good these teams are. All right, well, look at the Big 12, man. Over the course of time here, you got 4 teams that have proven themselves to be championship worthy already in this conference. But if you lose, it does become the complete coronation of the SEC. It is the cherry on top of this whole year. It's slamming home the narrative that's been played this whole year about it being the best league out there, perhaps the best league ever. It would go most teams ever in the tournament, most teams ever in the Sweet 16. half of the Final Four, and the national champion. And that would be a pretty perfect way. I mean, that's a pretty unassailable resume, I would say, for the SEC this year and what they've done at a time when you just don't need them to have that, right? They have all the power in football. You don't need to give them basketball. Again, a tournament that they have not won since 2012. You do not need to give them that. I think it's pretty big in terms of what we would be talking about from the big picture of this season and conference supremacy and how that conversation is going to go. And yes, you can tell me, oh, it's kind of silly, John. It's kind of frivolous. Who cares? But it does matter, because this is an era where if you're not one of the Power 2 conferences, like, you've always got to be worried about the existential threats that are out there. And yes, so much of this is about football, but basketball is something you can make extra money off of. There's legitimate tangible value to you having the reputation as the best basketball conference out there, not letting the SEC commandeer that and take that. This holds a lot of value. You can like it or not, but I'm telling you, I do believe that to legitimately be the case. It holds a lot of value these days because there is such an existential threat always out there. The other thing that would be really brutal about Florida winning, if they do, is that, man, Tech fans, I'm sorry, but man, Tech had it. They had them knocked out, and we were that close. I mean, there's no guarantee that Tech beats Auburn. Obviously, that would have been another very, very tough game. But Florida did beat Auburn, and Tech had Florida totally dead to rights with 3 minutes left in the game. Could have had an all Big 12 national championship game, man. How sweet would that be? How sweet would that be? Either way, you've got to give the Big 12 its flowers after this game. You've got to give the Big 12 some respect, because even if the league doesn't win the national championship, still having a team in the title game for the last 6 years, pretty darn good. It also would have been the Big 12 having 3 of the last 5 teams to win the national championship. Do I have that right? 3 of the last 4. Yeah, if it's a win, that's right. That was from Cyclone Larry. 3 of the last 4 teams to win would be Big 12 champs if Houston were to win. But even if they don't, 4 of the last 6 tournaments, ending with a Big 12 team playing for the title, 4 different programs. And a point on that I would make too is, like, back in the days when nobody was fighting for this league and there were negative narratives about it all the time, the narrative in basketball, and actually this one rightfully so, was that kind of like football, where it's Oklahoma and everybody else, basketball was Kansas and everybody else. Nobody could make the Final Four other than Kansas. Nobody could win the league other than Kansas. Now this league has evolved to a point where you've got 4 teams in the span of 6 seasons that have gotten to the national championship game. At least 2 have won it, maybe a third, maybe a second one outside of Kansas. And this doesn't even count like Arizona, who's now in the league and certainly is capable of that with their ceiling, like an Iowa State that under TJ Otzelberger has turned into one of the most consistent, like, top 20 programs in the country. By the way, for those of you in the state of Texas, feel free to use this ammo. In the last 6 years, Houston, Texas Tech, Baylor, and TCU have all played for a national title in football or men's basketball. Texas has not done that in 15 years. Texas A&M has not done that in 85 years. Whew. Have fun with that one. So give the Big 12 some respect there. By the way, the Big 12 has the best win percentage of any conference in the NCAA tournament this year. Big 12 is at 70%, 14-6 in the tournament. I believe the SEC is 63%. So there you go. Some nice numbers to wrap things up with here, this discussion. But, man, you see that flip. You see that flip that I'm talking about. Depending on how this goes, we can shift the conversation back toward the Big 12, or it can just keep going full steam ahead to the SEC. And that's the tough part here, because that will happen. That will happen if Houston does not win the game. That will happen. Because we know how much everybody loves that talking point right now. I said earlier, the SEC kind of invented the conference pride thing. They've got the best media machine out there to amplify their message, and we will be hearing about it. And remember, like all these stories, like Ross Dellinger will have all these stories where he's reporting behind the scenes what's going on in the boardrooms with the SEC and Big Ten, kind of trying to bully their way around and utilize, like, flex their power as much as they possibly can. They get more emboldened Sankey will get more emboldened if they've got they've got basketball completely under lockdown as well. He will just get more and more emboldened in all of this stuff. And, things that people hate, like the multiple auto bids to the title game, like they'll just say, screw you. Not only do we have football, we got basketball now. Let's stop that. Let's put an end to that, Houston. Let's put an end to that. Now, can that actually happen? I'll get to in just a moment, but some super chats first. Appreciate you guys for being here. Like my guy, David. Thank you, David. By the way, if you want to submit a super chat, click the $ below the chat box to do that. So David says, yes, I'm a Husker fan, but I am so happy this will not be a Big Ten versus SEC on Monday. We need football and basketball championships to have other conferences involved. Hey, well, I appreciate that perspective a lot, David. And even if it were Duke, it's like, they're Duke. It would, sure, great for the ACC, but the ACC had a bad basketball year. Duke is just Duke. They're always going to be Duke. One, that's not very exciting. Two, they're just going to be a mainstay there. Like, get some new blood in there. Get some fresh blood in there. But you're right. Like, it just, as much as you can keep it, Big Ten and SEC fans, I know you're going to root for your conferences. I'm not really saying that you shouldn't do that, but for the overall health of the sport, like college sports, it is a better thing. It is a better thing to not have it just be Big Ten, SEC all the time in everything. That is better for everybody. Objectively, it is. If you're a fan of that league, obviously, I understand you're going to disagree with that. But anyway, I'm with you, David. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Matthew, Houston, much respect. They just don't let up. They do not, man. They do not. Absolutely do not. I like the decision not to foul, by the way, in a 6-point game with that was like around 40 seconds left or whatever it was. Like that decision from Kelvin Sampson there too. So smart. I mean, just Kelvin Sampson with some great coaching moves in game there against a guy who's still pretty green in John Shire. Appreciate you, Matthew. Thank you for being here. Alan, what's up, Alan? Thank you for your support, Alan. Great to hear from you. Alan says, Duke is my other school, and sorry they lost, but glad to see Houston win for the Big 12 and a chance to put the SEC in their place as the second best conference behind the Big 12. Rock Chalk Jayhawk Alan. Damn right, Alan. Damn right. Sorry that you may have been rooting for Duke there, but I'm telling you, Alan, as much as you love the Big 12, and I know you hate the SEC, Alan, I know that you do. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. This is a very, very good thing. Let's get the Big 12 a title over the SEC here. But I appreciate you, Alan. Always respect your opinion and appreciate you chiming in. Starter 179. If the SEC loses on Monday, they will have not won a national championship in football or basketball since January 2023. That's right. Football, it's been a little dry lately in football for the SEC. And then obviously it's been dry for a long time in basketball. We're told all the time how much daddies matter. So yeah, let's keep that one going. Let's add an extra year onto that clock. Keep that spinning. Thank you, Starter 179. That's good. See, between all of us here on this channel, man, we can come up with a pretty good PR arm for the Big 12. We definitely can. We definitely can. Thank you, Starter 179. And Al, love the old school Big A shirt. That's right. I actually kind of forgot I was wearing it, but yeah, wearing this one today. The old Big A shirt. Some Big A pride. Houston, classic member of the Big 8. Gotta show respect for them. No, much love, Houston, either way. And much love to you, Al. Thank you for being here, my friend. Okay, so here's the tough thing, right? Like, can Houston do this? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, by the way. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. I will talk about that in the ofbnews.com Big 12 newsletter. It's going to hit your inbox tomorrow, ofbnews.com to subscribe. This is a tough task. This is a tough task, and not just because of Florida, the opponent, but it's just refocusing. Like, I love what Houston did, but man, I think the position they're in is about the toughest position to be in all of sports. Put this behind you in such a short period of time. Everybody should be rooting for them, by the way. I would imagine most of the country outside of Florida and SEC country will be rooting for Houston. Okay. But this is not an easy thing to do. It was such an incredible win with both the way you won it and then who you beat that this puts a lot of stress and pressure on you to just flip the switch and get into go mode and not check your phone too much. Like I always think, especially in today's day and age, man, you just had a game where you were down 14 with 8 minutes to go, down 7 with 1:15 to go. You win one of the great comebacks in history. You beat Cooper Flag, this team that everybody thought was just invincible. And how many people are going to be blowing your phone up like all day? Like, I know how, if I'm basking in the light of a big K-State win, like I just can't stop eating up the content. Like my screen time on my phone goes up like twofold for the next 24 to 48 hours because I'm just like, oh, I want to see all the content. Like I want to see everything that comes across on Twitter. I want to see everything that comes across on our Discord. Shout out to the 3Mon Discord. I'm just here for all of it. I want to soak it all in. And especially if, look, I know I'm human like everybody else. If it were something like I had personally done out there, I'd be like looking at everything and getting all the texts that you would be getting from people. I'd be soaking it all in. It would be so hard to just like drop that out of your mind. And I mentioned earlier that we had, like, Matt Norlander was saying he had not really seen a celebration like that in a non-national championship game, which natural. I don't blame anybody for that at all, the way that it all unfolded. But that's hard to just pack that away and say, well, all right, we'll turn around and let's get ready for Florida. Let's get ready for Florida. It is so much like, I used this analogy earlier in the week, but it really is so much like Miracle on Ice, 1980 Winter Olympics. The U.S. beats Russia, that was the big bad Goliath that nobody thought could be taken down. You do it. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, then that's it, right? We did it. No, if you want the gold medal to finish it off and not make that seem like kind of not totally worthless, but in some ways worthless, you still got to win another game. You got to go beat Finland. Well, Florida is Finland. Houston's got to go finish the job. They've got to beat Finland to cap this thing off. Can you do that with everybody praising you, all the wild celebration, your phone blowing up? Can you do it? It's not easy. It's not easy, man. And not only that, but you're doing it against a really, really good team. I know nothing about the quality of the 1980 Finland Olympic team. I have no idea how good they actually were, how tough a task that would be, how that compares to Florida. But what I know is that Florida still, if you go back to the stat that was going around last week, the Final Four was comprised, or this past week, the Final Four was comprised of 4 teams that were all in the top 10 of Ken Palm's all-time list of best teams, which dates back 30 years. So what it means is you're looking at 4 teams that were all in the top 10 of the last 30 years. So Florida is still one of the 10 best teams of the last 30 years. And that's who you got to go play in the championship game. So it's very easy to be like, well, they weren't Duke. You just beat Duke, so that opens up. Well, okay, they did beat Duke, but they also were controlled for 38 minutes and 15 seconds. So if Florida's somewhere in the ballpark, in the vicinity of that, which I guess the Ken Palm numbers would tell you, then that is tough. That is tough. That's going to be and look, as clutch as Houston has been, I mean, the reason Florida's here is because they have been as clutch as anybody. They're absolutely here because Walter Clayton Jr. has ask Texas Tech. Walter Clayton Jr. just rises up and hits every big shot when they need him to. So that's another team that has this kind of sixth sense. And think about it from Florida's perspective. If you're Florida, you're sitting here, we're having this conversation about Houston, like, oh man, slayed the dragon, just go get one more. But Florida's like, dude, now Duke's out. Duke's out. We don't have to do it. Someone knocked him out for us. So they're sitting here like, all right, sweet. We'll take our shot at Houston. We'd much rather have that than Cooper Flag and Duke. Let's roll. That's the other side of this. And man, that's the danger. That's what makes it tough. But I would hope at least that the rest of the country is going to be rooting for Houston here, because how could you not? Not only the SEC being nauseating, but set that aside. Like, Houston is such a team that's kind of as much as you can get this way in this era, they're kind of the antithesis of the portal hired gun Wild West era that we have here. I said earlier, Juwan Roberts, 5th-year senior, worked all his way up from 1 point per game to March Madness hero, all-time hero. Emmanuel Sharp has played for 3 years at Houston. Joseph Tugler, 2-year guy so far at Houston, and spent all his career there. He had a big moment late in the game. They've got some transfers, LJ Cryer, Milo Suzanne. Like, they've got some transfers. You can't avoid it these days, but culture that's all about toughness. It's a program built completely on culture. Kelvin Sampson was talking about this week how even his hires, like all of his hires, are internal because they just value their culture that much. Kelvin Sampson has been there for 11 years. Like, he has not left this program. And he took it from a program that this was crazy. I was looking at this earlier today. Houston had been to one tournament in 25 years before Sampson showed up. One tournament in 25 years. And Kelvin Sampson has now taken them to 6 Sweet 16s in a row, and he's stuck around and stayed there and just built the culture, laid the foundation for this thing. Everybody should be rooting for that. At least if you're somebody which I hear so much of this, the people that complain about NIL and the portal and the current environment, you should love Houston. You should love Houston. That's who you should want to be winning this thing. So, go Cougs. I think I say that on behalf of basically everybody that's here. I'm pretty sure. Did I see somebody say we are Russia in the chat? Anyway, it's about buzzer beater time. If you got something, make sure you get it in now. I've got one more topic for you, but you got like 10 minutes or so left. Click the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat if you want to be on the show tonight. Appreciate everybody who is here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. That is a great way to support. Also a great way to support. Make sure you're subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, in order to do that. And John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you would like to leave a question or comment there. If you do that, I will kick off the next show with it. So you can still be a part of it if you're not catching the show live today. Appreciate everybody who's here. Like Daniel. What's up, Daniel? Daniel says, I was at a Kings game in 1980 when the USA beat Russia. All right. Kansas City Kings, right? Yeah. Our basketball team played a makeup game at Kemper after that Kings game. Doing very well. Glad to hear it, Daniel. It's the way I always remember things too. Like, I can remember big events by like what sporting event was going on, or I remember a big sporting event by like where I was watching it. Just the way that we're wired, I suppose, my friend. Rest in peace to the Kansas City Kings. Rest in peace to the Kansas City Kings. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you for being here, and thank you for sharing that. I'm going to dip into football just briefly here. All right. There's a lot of stuff. Dennis Dodd wrote it's a very long article, very, very long, about private equity in college football. And the general premise is, and this is a headline, like, private equity people, money people think that college football is leaving literally billions of dollars on the table every single year because the media contracts are all splintered out by conference instead of like the NFL. Everybody has pooled their rights together and you just sell it as one big entity. And that is why the super leagues have come into focus here. Like Project Rudy would aim to make everybody more money by doing that. Now, will that be realistic? I'll let you know based on this article whether or not my opinion changed on any of that. But the other thing, it just dropped in this incredibly interesting nugget about Patrick Mahomes. Could Patrick Mahomes own a piece of the Big 12 in college football? Because this just like sprinkled in, well, Patrick Mahomes maybe planting the seed for that. So one of the people Dennis Dodd talked to was Casey Wasserman, who heads the Wasserman Group, which he says is one of the most powerful entertainment and sports executives, makes him one of the most powerful execs in sports. And Wasserman said, we're at a fork in the road no matter what anybody says. College football is either leaving the current structure and keeping all the money, or they're staying. It's not that complicated. So leaving the current structure, if you could turn it into some sort of super league or not. Wasserman says that there's about a $4 billion to $5 billion valuation shortfall in college football. So they're leaving $4 to $5 billion on the table right now. College football is. It's a lot of money, and you guys know money. It's like Wu-Tang Clan in college football right now. It's cream. Cash rules everything around me. That is college football to a T right now. Whether it's the TV networks, whether it's the schools, whether it's becoming the All-State 12, whether it's the Big Ten exploring private equity, whatever it might be. It's all about money. So that seems like that could be something to get your attention, right? Project Rudy is one of those Super League proposals that would claim to be able to extract some of that money if that's the way things went. And they had a 70-team proposal, which for a lot of you listening to this channel, if you're in Big 12 country, if you're in ACC country, that sounds pretty good, right? If it's going to be 70 teams, that sounds pretty damn good. Points out in the article, the Super League would be similar to what the NFL did in the 1960s. Then Commissioner Pete Rozelle convinced owners that combining to a single entity business and sharing revenue would be more profitable and competitive. One source told CBS the projected annual revenue of Project Rudy would be at a minimum of $3 billion and as much as $10 billion. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It sounds pretty good. It did talk about earlier. Let me double check this to try and give you a. So the Power 4 media rights deals. Yeah, right now, if you combine the media rights deals of the Power 4 conferences, they're worth a combined $17 billion. But that's over the next, for the Big 12 and SEC, or Big 12 and Big 10. The two that are up in 2030, right? You're looking at like 5 more years on that. The others are even longer than that. So you got to divide that by a bunch of years and you still just get to 17. They're talking about this altogether could be worth as much as $10 billion for one single year. So Project Rudy is pretty bullish on the amount of money that they would make. And apparently one group of 5 commissioner agrees at least and says, if your story says that there's far greater selling power with the conferences rolling all their rights together at the same time in a unified way, then you're literally not missing a thing. Okay, seems like they're on board with that. Now, private capital becomes a big part of the discussion here. Dennis Dodd claims to have learned, CBS Sports has learned that at least one venture capital entity had interest in buying into a Power 4 athletic department. So those of you that have freaked out about private equity in college football, it's been generally at the level of like a conference. I guess we did hear about, like Florida State and Drew Weatherford, their former quarterback that's been involved with, private capital. But one athletic department. It went on to like detail more of that later on in the article, but a Power 4 athletic department getting in bed with private equity itself. That's really getting in there, man. That's really getting in there. But the reason that those sharks are circling the waters, these venture capitalists, is because they feel like they look at like this Project Rudy proposal and they're like, yeah, man, it seems like there's a lot of money being left on the table here. That's why the Big 12, the reporting that came out about the Big 12 meeting with a private equity group was kind of based around that same idea that they got this valuation that by the next TV deal for the Big 12, their valuation would double. So twice as much money. There you go. Bam. Let's ride. Of course you'd want to invest in that. There's also this nugget that was dropped in. College football had twice the viewership of the NBA, but the NBA generates twice the revenue. Again, pooling all the rights together, they seem to be making a compelling case here that could be something that's good to do. And now here's this. Okay? So they make mention, Dennis Dodd does, and CBS in this article about, hey, global giant CVC was involved for a time with the Big 12 last year. And then in the very next paragraph, it says sources tell CBS Sports to keep an eye on Otro Capital, an emerging firm run by former Redbird partners who specialize in sports, media, gaming, and entertainment. Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Rory McIlroy, and boy, one of my favorites, actor Ryan Reynolds are among the investors. So you've got an investment group named Otro Capital, that includes Patrick Mahomes trying to get involved here. Patrick Mahomes and all the money he has, that $500 million contract with the Chiefs, he's trying to get involved in the Big 12, potentially, man. I mean, I guess I say the Big 12, just a part of college sports. It led in from the article about, hey, someone was interested in the Big 12, and then here's Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I mean, I shouldn't leave Travis Kelce out of this, a fellow Big 12 alum. But that's interesting, is it not? Could that make you stomach private equity, private capital a little bit more if you're a Big 12 fan? If it's going to be Patrick Mahomes is pretty beloved throughout the conference because you got Kansas, K-State, and Texas Tech fans that are all rooting for the guy. Would that help you stomach it a little bit more? You're saying, well, at least we're owned by Patrick and Travis. That sounds pretty good. It definitely sounds like something that would be right up their alley. It's something that they would really enjoy to have more of an ownership stake in. I mean, Mahomes already has an ownership stake in the Royals, and then the women's soccer team that's here in Kansas City, with his wife being heavily involved in that as well. He loves sports, and if it's something that can get him like at least indirectly involved with Texas Tech there, I'm sure he would love it, because you see Mahomes sitting courtside at Texas Tech basketball games all the time. Like he's definitely a guy that's not shy about going back. So I thought that was fascinating, right? That was fascinating. The other part of it is like, Tech, can you save some money for the rest of us, man? You've already got the multi-billionaire in Cody Campbell that can bankroll basically whatever right now with any of the programs. And now Patrick Mahomes on his way to becoming a billionaire. And we're talking about him, possibly owning part of the sport, getting involved with a private equity group within the sport here. Anyway, last couple of tidbits here from the story. Dodd asks, the basic question becomes, can the outdated financial model overseen by commissioners and TV survive when there's so much money to be made? The outside interest almost hints of the business world's version of a hostile takeover. So he's almost kind of forecasting here like a hostile takeover by private equity folks, because they're seeing how much money is being left on the table. But the key to all of it, as he mentions, any change in the discussion has to be blessed by the SEC and the Big Ten, who are the de facto owners of major college sports at this moment. And that is very true. And there still has been really no indication that they have much interest in that at all. And some of this is because, hey, even if there's more money and cash rules everything around me, all that, even if it's more money for the SEC and Big Ten, they would be theoretically in that scenario giving up a level of power that they have right now. And that's probably really what it comes down to. Like, they don't want to cough up any of that power, even if it would mean a little bit more money for them, because it would also mean more money for everybody else, and definitely a little bit more even of a playing field in terms of the power structure, the power dynamic. So keep an eye on it. Look, obviously I would love to see Project Rudy, not just because of what it means for Big 12 schools, but because getting everybody back together, organizing geographically. I mean, there's just so much about it that makes sense and takes us closer to what the sport is really supposed to be. I would very much love to see that. Maybe someday, kids, we'll get Sankey and Petiti on board with that. Thank you for being here tonight. Congratulations again to Houston. I'm pumped to go watch that game tomorrow night. We'll see, depending on how things go, how late it is, all that. I don't know if anybody would be up and interested if they win and doing something live. We'll see. But please like the video on your way out, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. If you want more Houston coverage, it's all going to be there in your inbox tomorrow morning. Open for Business, ofbnews.com to get subscribed. Oh, my bad. I see Bob says Elgin Baylor died a few months ago. Man, I read a tweet that said it was Olajuwon with Elgin Baylor. So last time that I trust Twitter, I didn't mean to try to bring Elgin Baylor back to life. Okay, Mario Ellie. All right, awesome. Thank you for the correction there. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you all. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Hope you have a wonderful start to your week, and I will talk to you very soon.